We've got a brand new trailer for Ghost in the Shell, and we're going to watch it, and then we're going to talk about all the butt that Scarlett Johansson's kicking. I'm Erica Ishii, and this is Screen Junkies News. Okay, so we've had one previous trailer, and we've had a Super Bowl tease, but with the film getting closer to the March 31st release date, we've got something brand new to look at, and here to talk with me about it are David Griffin and Dan Murrell.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me, gentlemen.
Hello, thanks for having me.
All right, so let's take a look.
I have been watching you. You have to remember.
I saw someone down there. He wasn't human.
He's a known
psycho.
terrorist.
Very
And he's
Bernard
a
Herrmann.
They didn't just kill them. They hacked into their minds.
He's everywhere and nowhere.
I will find him. And I will kill him.
You never talk about your past.
I don't remember much. Just fragments.
There was an attack. You were dying. We saved you. And now you save others.
Everything they told you was a lie. You had a family. Remember that.
Very Blade Runner. It's very, it's gonna be interesting to figure out
Beauty you are.
what's homage and what's not.
What do you want from me?
They did not save your life. They stole it.
How many were there before me?
She was supposed to have a clean brain. I order you to terminate.
They created me, but they cannot control me.
There you go.
Yeah, well, there it is. So, does this film look like it's going to be its own thing, or is it going to be pretty much a shot-for-shot remake of the 1995 standalone complex movie?
I feel like it's going to be a combination of both. I feel like even though I haven't seen the movie in a few years, I feel like as soon as I saw that trailer, I was brought back into the world of Ghost in the Shell. Just immediately from the shot when she's just dropping down off the building in her kind of skin tight outfit she has there, it just feels like you're in the world of Ghost in the Shell. So I feel like they're capturing that, doing a good job with that.
Right. Well, we have some very specific shots that even in that trailer are getting shown. We have like the briefcase gun and the tank, the Ha-206 fight. We got the water tank, the window dive, that famous window dive, and the water fight.
Yeah, I mean, very similar. It's always interesting to figure out, and full disclosure, I'm coming at it completely cold. I haven't seen Ghost in the Shell, so this for me is my first exposure to that. But
you were already calling out some other things that you thought it was.
Yeah, because it came out in 1995, so obviously The Matrix is the thing that most people say. The Wachowskis drew a lot of inspiration for The Matrix from Ghost in the Shell, but I'm also seeing a lot of again. As a newcomer to this, the look of it is very Blade Runner, which I'm sure Blade Runner drew from other inspirations. Particularly with sci-fi, it's hard to figure out, like RoboCop. There's a lot of that kind of human man or machine or human or machine kind of thing that seems to be going on with Scarlett Johansson's character. Sci-fi is so hard to untangle as far as what's influenced by who and where, what was written first and how.
The manga and the movie specifically were 95, and they very much drew inspiration from Blade Runner, as well as like formulating this world based on the post World War II electronics boom Japan. But yeah, as you said, do you think it's going to be seen as derivative, despite the fact that it did it first back in 1995?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, as a movie. And again, you have to look at it, people always say like, well, it shouldn't count. You have to look at the source material, but it is a movie. It's its own thing. And as a movie, I think it bears a certain responsibility, regardless of if the anime came first, it does bear a certain responsibility to be unique, to distinguish itself. I know, well, it's not fair because, maybe the Wachowskis did draw inspiration from, or however you want to characterize it. But the fact of the matter is that it does exist in a post-Matrix film universe. So I think that, trusting that people are going to know, oh, this is before the Matrix, a lot of people are still going to say you're ripping off the Matrix. And that's not fair, but I think that if you're making this movie, you have to know that going in, and you have to say, okay, we're going to use these elements, obviously, but it is also, we have to make this its own unique property.
Right, 'cause these are like all embedded all throughout pop culture. I mean, if you're, any video gamers out there, you ever played, Metal Gear Solid, I mean, it feels like a Hideo Kojima video game when you look at it, even though maybe he got inspiration for that from this franchise. Also, I love how they're embracing the strangeness of anime, and I say that as if you're a person who watches anime all the time, you've grown up watching anime, perhaps you're like, well, David, this is just what normal animation is supposed to look like. But for me, growing up watching like Cinderella and Lion King, I remember when I first saw Akira when I was a kid, I was like, what is this? Like, it's weird. Like the emotions on the faces, like the eyes, the sweat, like it felt so more visceral the first time I saw a Japanese anime film. So I'm excited. It looks like the movie's embracing that whole Japanese culture.
Yeah, Akira is another one that comes out of the post-World War II Japan. For the record, the Wachowskis, when they went into their initial pitch meeting for The Matrix, they said, we want to do Ghost in the Shell, but in real life. And so now that Ghost in the Shell is here in real life, it's going to be interesting to see how people deal with it in a post-Matrix world. But one of the biggest reveals that we got in the trailer today was the villain. We got to look at the villain, Kuze. What do we know about him?
We know that Kuze is he's like a full-on android, like full-on robot. And it's interesting that his face, you don't see a lot of it. Michael Pitt's almost unrecognizable in the scene, but he's supposed to have like this sculpted face, which is different than a lot of the other robotic figures. And I guess his mouth isn't really supposed to move. So
Yeah, he doesn't have an
creepy.
articulated, his
Right.
model doesn't have an articulated prosthetic face.
Right, because he wanted his face to be, molded, so it's a little different. So he's also not from the original movie, right? We were learning earlier that he's from a side story or one of the
he's
side.
from the Standalone Complex second gig film, which is a spinoff.
Right, so it looks like they're kind of like combining this whole expanded Ghost in the Shell universe like you would see like in Marvel or DC or something, which is actually pretty cool because it's been written about and talked about for a long time. I mean, since 1995, so it's cool that they're pulling all this information together.
And it's going to be a balance for Ghost in the Shell fans. You want to avoid this thing of going too far in one direction that you please nobody. You don't want it to go so far in the direction of mythology that non-fans are going to get lost. But you also, I think, don't want to throw it so far off track that fans of it are also going to say like, well, I didn't want this either. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the RoboCop when they remade RoboCop, which was it was too tame for people that like the original RoboCop, but I think that people that wanted to see that kind of action were like, this is kind of in the middle for me too. So I don't envy anybody that adapts a property like this because you have a passionate fan base, but it's not a widespread one as far as just like if you're selling it to everybody, which is what a movie has to do, especially one with a budget this big, is you have to sell it above the fan base. You have to depart from it a little bit, but it's I don't envy the people that have to make movies of beloved franchises or beloved properties because it is a very tricky balancing act, and we'll have to see if they can pull it off.
Yeah, well, speaking of fan controversies, one topic that is definitely worth bringing up is that this movie is being criticized for its whitewashing. Makoto Kusanagi is a Japanese character. A lot of people will pull into deep lore and say, oh, she doesn't have to be, or she's an android, so why does it matter? But it is a controversy that is getting talked about. Do you think this will in any way affect the box office?
Could it maybe affect it internationally? Maybe I wonder more than locally. I feel like I don't hear enough about it. You do see articles, of course. We're in this together. People watching really study this, and I feel like there are articles written about it. But I don't feel like it's a big enough controversy in the mainstream to affect the box. I think people will see like, oh, that's interesting. Scarlett Johansson, she's great. She was in Lucy, grossed like around $500 million worldwide. She's a big draw. Maybe they will go to see it, despite that the fact. But I wonder internationally, maybe in the Asian markets, if that would affect the result on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's Scarlett Johansson it's curious to me why they cast her now, because just from this trailer, I didn't think she was very good in Lucy, personally. I thought that she was kind of flat, and I'm getting that. Scarlett Johansson is a very good actress, but she has sometimes, I don't know if it's choices, but sometimes she comes off very monotone.
You said she sounded
very
bored.
Very flat. Yeah, she sounded bored to me in this, which if you're making this movie and you cast her, you have to know that that's going to cause some controversy. And now, having seen more of the movie, I wonder now, was it even worth it? Because I guess the reason that they would do that is to say, like, well, we're going to cast a big name star because that'll help sell the movie. Well, now, is it going to be worth that controversy? Or could you have found somebody that is of Asian descent, that is of Japanese descent, that could fill that role, that could do a really good job in it, and maybe make for a better movie? So, I wonder if it was worth it. I'm not sure that it was. Maybe the movie turns out to be great. I know that a lot of people probably looking at the trailers for The Matrix said about Keanu Reeves, like, oh, he's just doing the Keanu character. But yeah, it's not a good precedent to set. I think that when you adapt franchises, you need to be true to the spirit of those franchises. And I don't know if they were this time. So I hope that this does not become the rule, because yes, you need to have movie stars in movies, but I think you also, if you're going to tell a great story, you have to be true to the nature and the roots of that story. And I don't know if it paid off here. We'll see once the finished movie comes out. But for me, it's not, Scarlett Johansson isn't leaping off the screen to me as far as like, oh, thank God they cast her in that role. It was totally worth not giving that opportunity to somebody who could have been better suited to the spirit of the story.
Right. I personally, I understand why they cast her. She's huge, and as we saw, she can hold down a big budget action film, at least in terms of box office take. I think it was a huge mistake to cast her. I think that you can't, the reason that you don't have Asian actresses who have the same amount of experience is because you don't give them the opportunity to garner that experience. I think they could have cast Rinko Kikuchi, and she would have been amazing. She was great and badass in Pacific Rim, and even, people said even the haircut was reminiscent of Makoto Kusanagi. So, and I know a lot of, they've talked to people in Japan. They went on the Japanese version of 4chan and asked them how they felt about it. And they said they didn't really care, because to them, they're just happy that this film is getting made. They don't understand the racial dynamics in American cinema, though. So
I think, too, it's interesting, too, what might hurt the box office, back to this question, is more like just how stacked March is. There's so many movies coming. Beauty and the Beast,
Power Rangers, Logan,
Kong, Skull Island.
Skull Island, yeah.
If anything, I think just because, what do you go see? There's so many, I guess let's see when the reviews come out, but there's so many good movies. Like, what do you go see in March? There's so many.
It's interesting because, it used to be that you get all the blockbusters from May to August, and then people kind of started inching back into April a little bit. Right. Fast and Furious kind of started taking some space there. So then Marvel actually inched it to the beginning of May. It used to be mid-May, then it's the beginning of May. Then Fast and Furious marched it back to April, and now we're getting it back to March. And we're going to be, Jungle Book last year was an early year release, and we're going to be 24/7 blockbusters pretty soon. There's not going to be a blockbuster season anymore, I don't think. But is it too much?
Yeah.
I worry. There's only so many dollars to go around. I mean, we had a great weekend this weekend. Lego Batman, 50 Shades, John Wick Chapter 2, all opened well, but you have to wonder if all of those had opened on a weekend by themselves, would they have made even more money? And, you can only cannibalize so many box office dollars, especially when, you're right, every weekend in March, it seems like there's a huge movie coming out that's all going for the same target demographic, that's all going for that same audience. They're not going to go see all of them.
Right.
Yeah. That's kind of a fun predicament to be in, though, for
us,
the
it's
consumer. Yeah. So speaking of big box office, we asked you if you thought that this could be the next big science fiction franchise. So we got some answers from Twitter. Jonathan Peck, maybe? I can't read my handwriting. It says, yes, I hope so. And P.S., do you think it will happen and the same success with Battle Angel Alita? Now, let me tell you about Battle Angel Alita. One of my first cosplays that I ever did was Battle Angel Alita. I am a huge Battle Angel Alita fan. It's the same idea of a kick-ass woman with a cybernetic body down here on Earth, and it's so good and has amazing transhumanist themes. I really hope that one gets picked up. Good on you for bringing that one up. Devin Colson says it looks visually eye-gazing. It looks visually eye-gazing, and I think it could be a hit. The visuals, I think that they do look quite stunning. So it'll be interesting to see if this becomes the next big thing.
We'll see. You never know. Like I said, The Matrix came out of nowhere, and nobody was expecting that to really do much, and it ended up being a great film. If the movie's great, at the end of the day, if the movie's great, that's the best thing it can have going for it. There's very little margin of error anymore for a disappointing, lackluster film to really blow the doors off. There's too much.
And hopefully open the door for other, anime projects. Like, I watch Attack on Titan, One Punch Man, that would be cool if this does well. It's like, oh, we should start developing more anime properties.
I think anime properties are the next big thing. They have Death Note in the works as a TV series. Lots of anime and Attack on Titan. Yeah, it's interesting times. Interesting times for us anime fans. All right, well, what do you think? Do you think that it's going to be the next big thing? Let us know in the comments. And thank you for watching. Please click here for more internets. And thank you for joining us here on Screen Junkies News.